regarding the group discussion, regarding the submission, or even their cooperation when it comes to your projects. Okay, so that's why I will not be surprised to see that there are people actually who haven't have the group yet. Maybe because maybe because it's either their classmates don't are not familiar with them, or maybe because they have a negative attitude towards group work, so no one will choose them. Okay, so that is especially true. Okay, no stereotyping. Okay, in all grouping, so that's possible dili nga may amo na nga mga students nga wala ayaw sa kapangita groupings nila. But anyway, the reason why I wanted to talk and I wanted to discuss with you our project this afternoon, because I want to stress and to emphasize that for our intern project, so the bulk of your grade is on, of course, your project. So dumakambal ka 90% of your grades would come from your final project. However, your final project is divided into two. Okay, so we have the e-magazine, and at the same time we have the presentation. So if you tried to download that file I sent you through our group chat, okay, you would notice that there's two. Okay, there's two rubrics being used for your project. So the first one is, of course, your e-magazine, which is due on December, tentative due on December 16. Okay, so I'll check if that's the date that I have uploaded on our Canvas. If you can open your rubrics for that, you would notice that every area is actually written on that rubric. So that means to say you are expected to include those areas on your e-magazine. So starting with the introduction, okay, so starting with the introduction, the explication of the product, okay. So even when it comes to the different components of the psychological core, may ara din ko okay, nga specific areas for that. And each of the area, if you would notice, so there is a corresponding points for that. So I guess that one is would be around 80 points. And of course, your creativity for the e-magazine is 20 points. So that's why for that e-magazine alone, you have 100 points, and that 100 points is actually 70% of your grade. Okay, 70% of your intern grade. So where will the 30% be coming from? For the 30% would consist of the case that we have. So I guess um, for module 6, you have actually submitted screenshots, screenshots of your VAL survey, okay, the short survey that I actually required you to submit, so that would be graded. And at the same time, when it comes to the case, I guess, let me just share you our module really, so I could not miss out anything. Um, on module 6, what else was required from you? Okay, so the engaged part, submission, and the VAL survey. Okay, and there is as well, I guess, there's a group discussion, which I've mentioned. I'm going to gather this one. I'm going to check this one, and I will move the deadline for the submission of 6.5. Okay, elaborate next week. Okay, Friday next week. We are going to have our presentation next week, Thursday. Okay, so you still have time to work on this to finalize or to finish your work on the 6.5 elaborate. So, so the engage, the explore, and then the elaborate. Okay, so together um with the presentation. It's only the six modules lang gid ang may gisabit kamo sa akon. For module 7, I just published this one, pero you would notice that there's no requirement for this one. There's just not a short discussion on this for 7.2, where I will no longer require you to submit this, okay, because I am going to discuss about culture, okay, this afternoon. And of course, other than that activities for module 6, of course, part of the 30% is your presentation. Okay, presentation that will be next week. If in case we could not finish all groups on Thursday next week, then we are going to have or to extend our reporting on Tuesday, a week after next week. So I guess that is December 8th. Okay, December 8th would be the deadline or would be the second part, rather the second part of the reporting for our presentation. So what would happen? What is expected from you? Okay, for the presentation. Okay, so take note of the criteria that I have, and actually I've made some modification on that one because I forgot to include about your preparedness and at the same time your creativity. Okay, preparedness in what sense? Preparedness in a sense that you are actually um, ready, that you even prepared yourself, okay, when it comes to the right get up, okay, during the presentation, okay. When we talk about the creativity, as I've said, as I've suggested, you can actually even make use of the Zoom meeting, and then be able to record that one, and then that recorded, okay, that recorded Zoom meeting would be the one that you are going to present to the class. So what would happen there during the presentation is that I expect that you will be very familiar with the product, in a sense that I don't want anyone to place the text, okay, the words on their presentation, but rather it's more of the presentation that you are indeed very familiar with the product that you are selling. Duga pitch gid ka mo. So you might include lang gid few words as a guide, okay, as outline in the presentation, pero you are strongly encouraged to have it, okay, to be spontaneous in your presentation of the product. Okay, so bahala na how you are going to make diskarte on it na hindi namon makita nga nagabasa ka mo. Actually, if you are using desktop, okay, you can have those notes on your desktop, okay, but then do not place your script, do not place your discussion on the PowerPoint presentation itself. Kaya nga to have that distinction, because there will be an e-magazine wherein the narrative and the explanation of your project paper, of your paper, will be placed on that e-magazine. For this one naman, the presentation, this one will serve as the oral presentation. You can just but have the core information that you want to share to the class. So what is expected from you is, of course, to discuss about the product itself, the explication. Why would you consider that product to be unwholesome, challenging, or even undemanded? You have to discuss about the target market, focusing on um, their psychological core, their culture and values, and then lifestyle. So those will be the things that you're going to discuss. And at the same time, you have to give the rationale. You have to explain why do you consider selling that product. And of course, you have to explain again. Okay? You have to explain what makes that product unwholesome, because there are groups actually. Okay? There are groups actually na upon reading lang the submission, and without further explanations in the e-magazine, I could not, or I do not consider those products as unwholesome. Kung baga, there are just but some issues on the product that made it to fail in the market. Okay, so it's not unwholesome, but possible there are strategies, failure in the strategies of the marketing that cause the failure in the product. So amo naman na siya. So here in your presentation, I want you to discuss that one. Okay? You need to discuss that one on your presentation. Okay? So That's 30%. Okay, that's 30%. And again, please be reminded that you have to ready yourself again. And at the same time, for those who might have a poor connection, so I would like to suggest that you can take a video recording of your part, and then you share that. Okay? You share that with your group mates so that they can actually collate or gather all the files and come up with just one file recording, and then you're going to share that with the class. Okay, so muna siya ang expectation for your presentation. Okay, so everyone is expected to be presenting, to have a part in the presentation. So I'm going to check that. Okay, so expect that on our canvas, if you would notice in our canvas, so we have the due for midterm, and then the elaborate, which is the final project. So I am going to add another area here wherein your presentation will have to be graded. So diri naman ko mahimo on the grading of your presentation. Okay. So are there any question or clarification on or regarding our project so that we can proceed? Okay. If wala question, we can proceed with the last topic about culture. Are there any question or clarification? Guys, may clarification or question? Wala? I'd like to assume nga wala, or I will assume nga wala. Again, presentation will be next week, Thursday. And if not, we will not be able to finish all groups, then we are going to move that, or we are going to extend that rather on December 10, which is a Tuesday. And the deadline for the submission of the e-magazine, all the narratives, all the explanation will be written on your e-magazine. It's on December 16th. Okay? So I guess without question, so that I can proceed with the next topic. Because our next topic is about the cultural factors influencing consumer behavior. This is basically one of a very strong factor that actually would lead to our own learnings and beliefs to a particular stimuli. So basically, even in our case, okay, in our project, you can include it on your discussion. What is the culture of that specific target market na amon nga na-identify for that product, and be able to know those cultural differences, and at the same time how you can effectively target and communicate to that type of market. Okay, because sometimes um, there are actually possible very big differences when it comes to the culture that would even be a reason for a failure of the product, because they did not they did not study about that market before entering the market, before investing their millions on that market. So what if that specific market has a very strong culture, and which is against their belief, or the products that you are selling is against what they have learned in the past, okay, when it comes to their learnings in the past. So would like na siya to penetrate. So that's why it is really important for most of the companies to understand the culture, and at the same time even on how they deal with the people on that specific market. We have actually in marketing, okay, so we have a global marketing subject, and you would really learn um, things that would even fascinate you when it comes to the possible differences or possible similarities among the different cultures. And even you would recognize that a Pinoy really is a mix of different culture, influenced by different culture. So when we talk about the current generation, when we talk about the Western, damo nata in acculturation wherein we have already adopted a second culture from Western. So una, when we talk about culture, of course, we grew up learning from our native culture, or that is what we call as the inculturation. But then, because of the presence of media, okay, when we talk about the mobility of the people, of different individuals, we are basically being influenced na of very strong culture outside of our own. Okay, that secondary culture. Western is one of those who have that strong influence over Filipinos. And at the same time, when we talk about the younger generation, your generation is actually influenced by the pop culture. That's why you would have the Korea K-pop. Okay, so a very strong na sa nga culture that even lead you, okay, to have a different preferences when it comes to clothing, when it comes to apparel. So that is where now the influence would come in, in terms of the trends. You are basically being affected by that. So at the same time, when we talk about culture, we really have to address these cultural differences because culture is because the globalization itself is so strong, and we would even say that um, for a particular product, like for example, globalization is present, would be present because this product may be using different ingredients coming from different places. It might be produced in a different country as well. So that's why nga malasa it's global, even ang mga product global na gid ang mga products because the inlain is sila ginhalinan. And mostly when it comes to the culture, our learnings would be based on well the things that we've learned in the past. And basically when we talk about this this culture, we have this certain association. May ara ang ma-associate sa ang country, especially if we know about the country of origin for a specific product. We have now the association. Pinoy, we really know that Chinese, we associate China, okay, to having cheap products, cheap labor. Okay, that's why which is really true. Even products coming from the first world countries are being assembled, are being manufactured in China because of that low cost, low labor cost. And at the same time, okay, we have certain associations as well to different countries. I've come across a reading about the globalization wherein you would identify, okay, or you can associate different countries um, when it comes to where they excelled, when it comes to where they're good at. That's why they would say to know that when it comes to the reality, okay, the expectations versus reality, our expectation because of the association and because of our previous learning is that we would say that the policeman, okay, policeman would always be an Englishman or an English. Okay? At the same time, when we talk about car mechanics, okay, those who are really good on and who excel really in mechanics, okay, engineering would be the German. That's why they would say the car mechanics would be a German. When it comes to cooks, then they would associate that to French. And at the same time, when it comes to innkeepers, there is this when I read this one, hindi ko lang gina-associate si innkeepers. The innkeepers would be Swiss. That in a sense, hindi ko siya wala ko siya, I didn't have time to really understand what is the culture, what is the behavior of the Swiss people, wherein it is being associated with the innkeepers. But ang pinakahapaw ko, yung pinakahapaw ko nga analysis nito, ang muna siguro because if you can remember when you were young, when talking about United Nations, kung Miss Swiss ka na, ang imo nga bayo, di ba, imo nga bayo, do may apron like, okay, so do ka, sort of, do ka helper maid, okay, ang association, yung na stereotyping because of that costume. So sila nila on that article that the innkeepers is expected to be Swiss, and of course the lovers would be the Italian. Okay, that is the expectation because that is based on the learnings, okay, maybe based on his history in the past that they would have that association, and because of the attributes as well, like that of the Germans, they're really good when it comes to cars. So the car mechanics would be the German. That's the expectation. But the reality, if you're already out there, you would notice that there's already the combination. It is already possible that the policeman would be German. When it comes to the car mechanics, would be French. When it comes to the cooks, it would be English, or the innkeepers would be Italian. Okay, so nagsinulianay na, and the lovers would be the Swiss. So here, okay, we would say that when that in that certain aspect, so pwede na, okay, may adaption na, there is already that acculturation, okay, acculturation in the global world because of the influence, and at the same time some of the changes na in the behavior of the consumer. So that's why it's really important to understand, okay, to understand culture. Even here in the example, in the introduction that we do have, you would notice that Pepsi has come up with three different concepts. In the 1980s, okay, their concept is about the choice of the new generation. Okay, the choice of the new generation. That's in the 80s. And in the 90s, okay, you got the right one, baby, in the 90s. And then Nicki Minaj, the Live for Now campaign, okay, which is the recent campaign of Nicki Minaj, using Nicki Minaj for the company, okay, for Pepsi. So basically, you would even see, okay, how they would project those concepts on their advertisement. But you could really see, okay, the difference among these different advertisements of Pepsi. And at the same time, when we talk about culture as well, we have this different perception. So this is actually, there is an activity there supposedly, pero because damo na kaya mo i-obrahon, so I opt not to require you to submit this one. So here, how do we perceive things? Okay? So kagina ito mangkot ko for students what's their thoughts on this regarding this first question. Men should always pay for their date's dinner. And then the second one I added, what would be the right one, the right age rather, what would be the right age to get married? Okay? So sige be, for maybe for 5 minutes I can spare our time for this. May I ask, may I ask si Heinz kasi isa lalaki, so si Heinz masabat. Good me. Heinz, can you answer this one? And then another one, Rika. Rika, what is your thought on this question? Men should always pay for their date's dinner. Heinz? Heinz, are you there? Heinz? Hello? Heinz? Or anyone from the group? From the Lucky Nine? Who
Miss,
can
miss.
give me an answer? Okay, Heinz, there.
What's the question
Heinz,
again?
what would be the question is, should men always pay for their date's dinner?
Depends,
Next,
miss.
okay, okay. So Rika, prepare with your answer. It depends.
It depends,
What
miss,
do you mean?
if whoever for the date. Like, if ako be miss nag-ask, so if ako nag-ask, it's better nga ako ma-pay.
Okay.
For me.
Uh-huh. Maybe because you were the one who invited for a date. So ikaw pay, no?
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, let's say may babae, ginagad ka nga, nga ma-date. So, what? Kung
Uh,
babae nagagad.
mm, KKB. Bot miss
KKB, compatible nga, okay, tungata. Nahuya ka man hayos mo, kay ikaw
Okay, ako
lalaki.
din na, nahuya ko bimis
Ay,
ni
ikaw,
ako.
it's because lalaki ka. So, nahuya
Ah,
ka nga, siya pa nagagad, siya pa nangagad, share ka man.
yes, yes.
Dumaduhol ka man kunwari. So, it's up to the girl kung patuno niya na or hindi. Kaya ikaw pala
Ah,
nangagad. Well,
yes.
we're talking about romantic dates, because kung magamba tayo, friendly lang yung date sa mga barkada. Kaya magamuna, sige, na yun na.
Ah,
Wala, gapakadto pa lang kamo to yan, gakontratahanay na kamo, kikibi ha. Pero kung romantic date, so, you would consider paying as well, or at least giving a share
di na
to
share,
that one.
huya
Or
man sa date
maybe,
nila.
wala ka sa date mo. Pero siguro, if you will be having na your job and then someone will invite you to have a date, siguro sa pagkalalaki, sometimes sa iba ng mga lalaki, I don't know, maybe because it's the learnings na, and you are always being tagged to be a gentleman. So you tend to, kumbaga, sinabi din na ako may kwarta, kami lang mga lalaki, sorry for the word, but yeah, not really kasikat, pero that's maybe because of the ego ng mga lalaki, that they would rather, okay na ako na naman yan, kasi ikaw pa nangagan sa akin. Okay, especially kung type mo, di ba, Heinz? Okay, that
Yes, yes.
possibly would happen. Pa-impress na yan. What about sa mga girls? Rick, are you around?
Miss,
Yes, Rick. Ikaw yan, Rick.
ga-agreement ko, miss, nga do half-half ka mobile sa payment, miss, or hindi, gani. For example, ang guy, ginhagad, ya kabi, miss, kung that day, siya ma-pay, pero kung next time naman, miss, do ikaw naman, bala, miss, no ka give and take.
Okay, at least bawi. At least bawi. Kaya next time. Sige understand ako naman Diba? So that would be the common ginhambal. What about naman niya, thank you, Rika and Heinz, what about naman niya, what would be the right age to get married? Micah. Mike, I hear your thoughts on this?
Yes, miss.
What would be the right age? What would be the right age to get married?
To get married.
Mhm.
For me, miss. Ah, wait. Nang wala, if miss, if ready ka na bala misaw, like sa mga financial bala miss.
Mhm.
Sako nang yung isa,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
amo na miss, kung ready ka na sa mga galastuhan.
Okay. So, there's no age really kung at what age, but then if you are ready, financially stable, then that would be the time that you would consider getting married. Doon na, Mike.
Yes, miss. Doon
Okay,
muna.
sige. What about Jade? Jade, ikaw Jade. What would be the right age to get married?
Same man, miss. Like, no definite answer siguro kay you must, you can get married at any time nga do ma-feel mo financially, emotionally, mentally able and stable ka na.
Okay, so there's no age, really. Okay. Sige. Thank you for your thoughts, students. Well, basically, that would really depend on our as well perception of the thing. Um, when we talk about being financially stable, there's one student earlier who mentioned, and this because may lalaki na nagambal nga so that this I get married at the age of wala, when I am financially stable. And when I asked him, so what if you will be financially, you think you have a good job at the age of 22, are you going to get married at the age of 22, 23? Nag-oo na siya. And then there's one student, a girl student, who actually said that for her, she would rather get married at the age of 28, 29, or 30. May ideal age siya. Even if she's already financially stable at the age of 22. Because she wanted to enjoy life first, being single. Okay, or still kami nubyo pa kung during that time, but I still would consider enjoying first. Okay, enjoying first before I would get married. Okay, even if I am already financially stable at the age of 22. So it's more on self-anay ko na naiunahon. And that's really a very good man, okay, a very good man na orientation. Okay, that they would consider that thing first before getting into a life or having a family of your own. We could really tell that. Sa una, it's even funny, no? That when, well, sa inyo siguro, I guess even at this present time, so when we talk about the different generation, and even the rate of uh, the married couple actually nag-decline, and at the same time, the age of the marrying age even nagtaas. Wherein sa una, if you would, if during our time, if we would hear people saying, for those age nga maglambot na gani sa 30, maglambot na gani at that age 30 lang kasi nga laon ka na. Pero subong, it really doesn't matter ang age mo. Other people would get married at a very late age, 30 plus, even almost 30, 40, okay? Because naglain na ang perception sa lingkod the Western culture naman. Wherein, if we're going to compare that in our the same culture, Filipino culture, pero sa una, mga lola, no, mga lolo nyo, they get married at the age of 18, 19, 20. It's a very early age pag sa ilaya. And then subong nagatigulang, naga-age pagid sila, naga-age pagid ang mga people before they finally decided to get married. Okay, so lain-lain no orientation because that's one thing. We are being affected by the acculturation na. Okay, so mga lain ng mga priorities. Okay, lain ng priorities that we set in our lives. Okay, so at the same time here, when we talk about differences, okay, cultural differences when it comes to communication, this is very important, especially for us business people, because we will be dealing with foreign partners eventually. And at the same time, if you are having a business, your own business, mas gusto mo din yung mag-expand abroad. Expanding your business abroad is easy at this time because of technology. I don't know lang if there's anyone in the group who was able to attend that Zoom seminar that I actually shared the link previews the others last Saturday or 2 Saturdays. MG po is actually a graduate of marketing, and she is into physical and then physical store and at the same time online store. That at present, even that mask of Get Spotted could be now found at Amazon US. So she's not having meetings with the business partners outside the country. So that is how possible reaching the international market at present because of technology. So how much more when you will be the one working in the corporate world. So possible that you will be meeting different cultures, partners, foreign partners. So here, very interesting when we talk about the differences when it comes to the cultural communications of different individuals. For us Asians, for us Filipinos, we are so fond of gift giving. We are so fond of gifts, receiving gifts. That's why kita niyo man nga to that certain point na mahambal ta nga ang mga negosyante subong kung mag-deal na sila gani business, may ara na sila sa under the table, may ginahatag na sila nga something tangible para sila pilion sa mga buildings, sa mga sila pilion among the different investors. Because that is very by nature sa mga Asians, mahilig ta mag-accept gifts, and at the same time, so the way how we deal with our business partners as well, we also give gifts. Other mga non-verbal actions as well differ from different culture. May take example the Arab, okay, and then the Italian, they are fond. I think they are. I think yes, the Italians or the French, they are as well fond. Mas ano sila, mas touchy sila. But even men would even embrace yun ang una sila yaka ka physical. So for us, kaya when it comes to opposite sex, though distant na yeah. And at the same time, when we had our field trip in Thailand 2 years ago, there's gonna explain lang sa culture because there's one student who actually asked a Thai, what's the meaning of bowing? Okay, because that's a sign of respect. Pero when the students notice na nga magbow sila nga lain-lain ang levels ng kamot. May ara nga sa chan, may ara nga sa may in between sang ilang nga heart, sa may lips or sa itit sa ilong gawa, that distance, may ari diri, and then may ari sa babaw. Because gali, saying that because the different levels, the different levels na gina-place ng hand would signify the position of that individual that you are talking to. So kung friend, duwa lang ka friend, ang ilang nga kamote, ara lang sila sa may ilang at sana yun, ang gabaw, may ilang gabaw. Parents would be higher level, yung mga lolas would be higher level, as ang mga gods, ang gods na nila, nagigya sa ila, sa may babong sa ulo nila. That's why sa temple, makita at ang mga tao nga nagabaw, with their hands above, their head. So lain-lain nga mga meanings at the same time. Because in that country, I want you to take note of this because these are actually the dimensions that you can really make use, that you can use especially on the culture and explanation ng paper nyo. Asians, for example, let's try as an example that I have given you, as Filipinos, very strong sa ato when it comes to the power distance. Kung tigulang ka, kung may position ka, gina-expect nga taas ang paglantaw sa imo. That's why it is being reflected because you are of a higher position. So basically, nagataas man ang imong hand as you pay respect to the individual. So same is true for us Filipinos. For us Filipinos, kung ma'am siya, kung sir siya, kung doctor siya, we address them as such. In our family, we could really identify, we could really distinguish which one is older, which one is younger, because all the youngers would call the older ones as manang or manong. So may mga title, may mga position kita nga gina-make use. So we are so very particular when it comes to title. That reflects us actually in the power distance. So very high sa power distance for an Asian. And at the same time, when we talk about the individualism and collectivism, there are countries nga very strong ang ilang nga collectivism in a sense that they are really they would give they would even pressure themselves because of what people expect from them. So very strong sa collectivism. They things that other people would tell about them would really matter. So that is the collectivism. Unlike the Western culture, they don't care. They don't care what other people would say. As long as I am happy, as long as I enjoy doing these things, I don't care about other people. That's the individualism naman nga characteristics of culture. This actually, the different dimensions of cultural values could be found. You can search that on the net. And then let's say, for example, if you would consider, let's say, the Chinese, you can check on the cultural dimension of Chinese para mabalaan niyo kung ano ang culture nila and be able to explain that. Why do you think that you as a businessman here in the country can possibly sell your product in China? Try to address this cultural factors of your possible market. At the same time, other market would be masculine or feminine, in a sense that Iban, they would prefer quality that is reflected for being a masculine culture, a very strong, so that's masculinity. Whereas ang Iban would typically be more sila on the emotions, more sila caring, that's the specific traits naman of female. So others could be found ng ilanis nila, ang ilani nga dimension when it comes to the preference to the product. Ang iba niya, okay, I will choose this particular product because this is this is of higher quality. Ang isa naman din lang ko okay do kakikay. So, ina nga culture man at the same time, naga-vary man or nag-influence man sa ating nga preference. Okay? So, masculinity, and then the avoidance, uncertainty avoidance. There are people who fear the unknown, okay? Fear of the unknown, and that is the uncertainty avoidance. So, because of that, they would rather buy something just to minimize the risk. Because ka very strong sang ilang uncertainty avoidance, they would rather avoid things which is uncertain. So for them, they would rather buy product that is of lesser risk. Biskan mahal pa na siya. Pero piyo ko nga hindi ni siya kalain in the long run. So same is true with the long-term orientation because others would really think of the long-term impact, the long-term effect. Okay, so that is with the long-term orientation. So here, how would they build business? So iban pangaluyag anay mga bata balaga. Which one would you prefer? It's the long-term engagement or the short-term engagement? And during that long-term engagement, what do you do? So the tendency is for you to really know about the person well. Pero wala na hinulsulanay, and at the same time, you would know that person so much nga, okay, na-accept mo na ang tantanan niya ng flaws, okay, and at the same time, you are very much ready for a commitment because you've known that person for a long period of time. Others, of course, they would prefer lang or would have lang a small tolerance when it comes to waiting. Okay, so they would rather decide yung iba niya nga mas decision nila mas lesser and mas lipot. Okay, so basically, you could look on this, okay, check on this, and which one do you think they would be a culture nga pwede niya siya ma-analyze nga makabal ka mo at sige, pwede ko makabaligya sa ili nga country. Kag pwede niya siya i-accept yun sa ili nga country because of the culture that they do have. So you have to understand, even guys with a specific market, if you're going to sell to the millennials, so ano na ilang culture, ang mga bakuya na mga pop culture. So because pop culture na sila, okay, so how do you describe these people? How do you describe this group of individuals? Okay, so are they being influenced by friends, by peers? So, siguro possible siya nga makasell kada sila kay hapon sila i-influence. Okay? So I guess that would end our discussion on culture. So these are the institutions that very strong when it comes to influencing our culture, the family, school, the churches, and then the media. Okay? So that's it, I guess. Okay? Just read on this on the different cultural factors. Anyway, in your international marketing, there will be a thorough discussion about this one. So this is very interesting, and Miss Wang will give you a more information about the culture of different possible markets. Yung mga big markets na China, India, that's India, the global and local, the globalization. Okay, so we're just not running out of time. This is a very good topic, Tani, when it comes to the cultural differences. Okay, so are there any questions or clarification? Question or clarification? Guys? I guess none. Wala question. So I guess wala man because your silence means no question. Anyway, I'll be sharing the video. I'll be sharing the recorded video so that